Hey, mamas, let's talk about those three signs your teen doesn't know how to learn. Now, if you're wondering, okay, what do I do if my teen procrastinates? What if she just doesn't have any motivation? And you're just wondering, okay, Jessica, like, I don't think my teen knows how to study at all. We are going to cover all of that in our time together. Okay. Now, this information I'm going to share is stuff that your teen can use immediately. So if your child is taking summer classes, you're thinking about that class or those classes in the fall, do know this is information that can happen to make a difference much sooner than you think. Okay, we're going to figure out what's really going on. What are those things your child is really doing that let you know, oh, this is the reason my child doesn't know how to learn because, well, she's doing that and it's a red flag, and that's what I'm supposed to get out of this. Okay. Now, in our very short time together, I could tell you about hundreds of students, hundreds of parents I've had a chance to meet, but I'm just going to narrow it down to these three. So Jenny had a son struggling in math, and unfortunately, he just thought he wasn't a math kid. Like he just thought, hey, I'm always going to be a D student, never going to do well. And it wasn't that he couldn't do it. It's just he didn't believe in himself. He didn't have confidence, which is a study skill. And Aisha had a daughter that had gotten kicked out of school. Right? She was in middle school. Her grades were terrible. Her behavior was terrible. And as her mama said, she was very, very strong-willed. So Aisha and I did an interview in my Facebook group. You're welcome to watch. It's also my YouTube channel. But just know that Aisha had her hands full, and yet everything changed for her daughter Amelia when Amelia learned how to learn through study skills. And Stephanie, another mama that knew her child needed some help with math, but an extra complication of ADHD. So for any of you watching that have kiddos that are neurodivergent, do know all the study skills I teach are good and are the skills that teens, tweens, young adults need, no matter if they're neurodivergent or neurotypical. Okay, so before we get into those three signs, I do have a question for you. I ask this at every one of my webinars. I like to ask it in all of my interviews, and that is simply, how would you like your teen to feel about studying? I know if you're watching this, you're probably going, Jessica, why would I want studying to not be easy for my teen? So I really want you to think about what that would feel like, what that would look like for you and for your teen if your child was actually eager to learn, was actually confident when it came to every homework session. Okay. Now, before we get going too much further, I know this might be the first time I'm getting the chance to meet you. So, hi, I'm Jessyka Coulter, CEO and founder of Ace Cookie Tutoring. I have been a tutor for nearly 10 years now. I've definitely been a nerd, someone who loves learning for all of my life, probably because I have so many educators in my family, including my mama, who is a high school English teacher. I can tell you that I also have been that student who was a straight A student for many, many years. I know that a lot of parents are surprised when I tell them that, yeah, I was a straight A student since fourth grade. That's when I decided I wanted to be valedictorian. And that's when I pretty much kind of chose my trajectory to learn as much as possible in every class from that point forward. Now, I will say, when parents hear that I'm a straight A student, when they hear that, yeah, I've wanted to learn as much as I could, that I've done this well for this many years, that they think, oh, and some teens think, I must just be good at school. Like, it just must be easy and I don't have to try. Honestly, mama, I gotta tell you, I get a little jealous when I work with teens that just get it. Like when they just know it, because that wasn't me. All right. I had to put a lot of work in. I had to rely on my study skills, on my knowing how to learn. So do know, when I work with your teen, when I work with any students, whether it's one-on-one through my tutoring business or when I've been a substitute teacher or paraeducator in a classroom, do know it always, always, always comes back down to students knowing how to learn, no matter if I'm talking about a middle schooler or an adult going back for his master's thesis. Okay. Now, just to let you know that it has not always been easy for me. Okay. There were definitely some classes that I struggled in, like could have been the end of the road for me on this whole valedictorian thing. And those were physics, history, and ceramics. So do know if your child is struggling with any of these, or maybe mama's, you're like, yeah, Jessica, I didn't like those either. I totally get it. I totally understand. Because physics was the class that could have really derailed it. All right, like senior year of high school, I'm almost done with education, right? Like with making that valedictorian dream happen. And then suddenly the teacher's like, Jessica, I can't teach you. Like, I don't know how to help you. You're on your own. And unfortunately, that could have been it if I hadn't found out about tutoring, if I hadn't known really what I needed from a teacher, like if I had known how I personally learned. As to history, I still don't like it, so I was unmotivated, still pretty unmotivated when I have the opportunity to learn about history. And ceramics, I could show you some of my art, but then you'd understand, Mama, that I'm not an artist, like not an artiste in any manner or form. So you would realize, oh, yeah, she's procrastinating because she doesn't want to make bad art. So if your teen is doing that, or is unmotivated because of history or some other class, or has had a teacher say, can't help you, I 100% get it. But the thing that's so awesome is because I knew how to learn, and I still know how to learn, and I relied on these study skills. And hopefully, I didn't just give this answer away, but it made it possible for me to go to college I wanted to go to. And I've had a whole lot of other jobs other than my tutoring business. And that's because I know I can learn anything I want to learn in any type of situation, which means that I can do well wherever, whenever I want to. And the same is true for your teens. Now, before we run out of time, I did want to ask another question, and that is, what is the number one thing that your teens can do to improve their ability to learn and get the grades they want? If there's an option to share down below, great. If not, definitely just take a minute to think about it, maybe pause the video, because my answer is, are you ready? Is to study. And there's a caveat to that. Okay, so if you said anything related to study skills, and we can talk about that more through our free consultation, what exactly are the study skills your teen needs? But the caveat is that your child has to know how to study correctly. Okay, there is a right way and a wrong way to study for each and every person. What that looks like is 100% dependent on that person. Okay, so mamas, you probably try to help your teens and it probably doesn't go well simply because you learn this way, your teen learns that way. Like our brains are just wired differently. Now, the reason we're here talking about study skills, the reason it's so important for your teen to know how to learn is because if your teens know how to study, they can learn anything. Now, I want to clarify this because I know I use both of these words and I've had mamas and teens both be like, Jessica, how do study skills help with learning? Like, what's the connection here? Well, do know studying is the process of learning. So in order for your teen to know how to learn, your child has to know how to learn. Okay. All right. So now that we've got the basics, now that we've kind of laid the foundation here of who I am, of why I know what's going on, why your teen, even more importantly, needs to have study skills, I want to focus on those three signs. Now, this would be my full webinar. We'd normally be here for an hour. We don't have that time. So we're going to focus on that first sign. The first thing that your teen does, maybe that even that first thought that your child has that lets you know, oh, okay, my child is missing study skills. And that first thing, that first sign is when your son or daughter thinks studying or learning is boring. That literally comes down to a lack of motivation. So let's talk about it. Why do our teens think studying is boring? And again, if there's room, let me know down below if this is something you're like, yeah, Jessica, I've heard my child say, I don't want to learn this. Why do I have to do this? This class is so boring. I don't like this teacher. Like all of that. Those are all the signs, basically the symptoms of this particular thought, of this red flag that lets you know your teen is missing study skills. Okay. So anything negative, I don't like this class. I don't like this teacher. School is boring. I don't want to learn this. Like all of that, those are indicators of this first sign, this basically first mistake that your teen makes when trying to learn. And if you've got any kind of like eye rolling going on, any like negative attitude, back talk to you or about a certain class teacher, that lets you know study skills are missing. Now, do also know something like a lack of interest. That also lets you know your child is not motivated to learn for the sake of learning. Now, if you go, okay, why is this happening? Or like, Jessyka, tell me more. Like, what's going on in my teen's brain? Well, do know when our kids say, I'm bored, when they're saying, I don't want to learn this, maybe I don't even care about this class, it is almost always a cover up. Okay. Instead of saying, hey, mama, I need help, or instead of telling the teacher, hey, I'm confused, or definitely not wanting friends to know that they're not getting it, our teens would rather just shrug it off. They'd rather just go, doesn't matter. It's boring. Who cares? Instead of saying, hey, look, I am confused. Please help me. That's really what's going on with our teens when they're missing study skills. Now, with each of these three signs, there are snowball effects, things that I want you as a mama to worry about down the road. What are things that are basically consequences of our teens not knowing how to study? With this, with them thinking that studying is boring, that, they just have no motivation, they don't see any kind of point to learning things. Well, unfortunately, that means they could fail classes. Okay, your teen isn't motivated to learn. Why is he going to show up for that class? Why is she going to attempt that homework assignment? For those of you that have older kiddos that are maybe in high school, getting ready to go into college, maybe even just thinking about the college process, do know you're paying per credit hour. That is a lot of money to waste just because your teen thought that class was boring, just thought, like, why do I have to go? Okay. Other two concerns here, other snowball effects, maybe not as tangible, but do know your child who isn't motivated to learn or even try something for the sake of trying it because he doesn't like to learn, well, that's a missed opportunity. That class could have turned into a lifelong passion. That class, that topic, could have maybe became a career if your child just would have given it a chance. Now, for me, as an educator, the thing I want every single teen I work with to do is to become a lifelong learner. But unfortunately, your child who doesn't love to learn for the sake of learning, has no motivation to learn for sake of learning, is not going to pass all that love to learning, no matter if we're talking your grandson, no matter if maybe your daughter someday works with teens, with students. Because if your child doesn't love to learn, how can he or she help another teen or another child love to learn? Now, the awesome news is that we can change this. We can fix this. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, as I like to think of it. And we've got to help your teen find that motivation to overcome this first sign. And for one of my tutoring students, he loved to play basketball. And so literally what we did is we got out on the court. I grabbed the basketball. We did every single assignment we could related to basketball. And we also tied in playing basketball into each and every study session, homework session as much as possible. That was his motivation. So I know there's a lot more we could go over in our time, but we have gone through that first sign your teen doesn't know how to learn. So if you're like, Jessyka, that sounds like my child. My child does think studying is boring, is definitely lacking motivation, then we should talk. And if you're looking at these other two signs, you're like, man, Jessyka, I want to know more about focus. I want to know more about why my child thinks studying is unnecessary. Then those are other reasons that we should talk. Okay, so I've got my link here for a free consultation. I'd love to meet with you and your teen one-on-one through Zoom and just figure out what's really going on with those study skills. What is really going on when your child sits in that classroom, sits down at the table, at the desk at home to do homework. Because I got to tell you that unfortunately teens aren't being taught how to learn at school. They're just pretty much expected to figure it out on their own. And yet that's going to be a lot of trial and error. That's a lot of frustration for you, a lot of kind of wasted time for your teen. So let's change that during our consultation. And when we meet, I would love to tell you about my Love to Learn Study Skills program. So that is how I teach teens study skills. That's how I help teens love to learn because I teach them how to learn. And like I said, I know we haven't talked about those 12 study skills, but happy to share those when we chat one-on-one. And do know the whole purpose of the program is to teach your teens how to learn. Because when your teens know how to learn, they will love to learn. Okay, so don't want to go into too many details here, but do know my program is one-on-one. It is a 7-month program, and I'm happy to provide very personalized instruction. All right, it's all the same study skills for every single teen I work with, but because your teen learns differently than any other teen out there, or young adult or tween, well, we personalize it to your child's interests and to how your teen actually learns. Now, to get you going on this process, maybe you need some help today, or maybe you just want to have a resource in your back pocket for when classes start up again. I've created the Homework Buster. It's 5 tips to bust through your teen's homework objections. This will actually tell you the 12 study skills that I teach. It's also very interactive, so something you can do with your teen to really figure out what is going on beyond what we've covered here today. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an awesome day, mamas, and I look forward to talking to you very, very soon. If you go to this link here, grab the Homework Buster, you'll have all of my contact information, including that link to schedule a consultation as well. So thank you, thank you. Thanks for being part of this awesome event, and I cannot wait to talk to you very soon. Bye, mamas.